It was supposed to be a quiet getaway, a peaceful cabin retreat in the Sierra Nevada mountains, a chance for a struggling mother and her children to start over. But what happened in Cabin 28 would haunt the town of Keddie forever. This is one of the most chilling unsolved murders in American history, and it still leaves more questions than answers. This is the story of the Keddie Cabin Murders. The year was 1981. Keddie, California, a tiny mountain town tucked away in Plumas County. Just under 100 residents, surrounded by dense pine forests and quiet dirt roads. It was the kind of place where neighbors didn't lock their doors, where everyone knew each other by name. That's what made what happened next so terrifying. Glenna Sue Sharp had moved to Keddie just months earlier. She was a single mother of 5, trying to escape an abusive marriage. She rented Cabin 28, a small rustic unit at the edge of town. Sue had been doing her best, raising her kids, getting by with welfare checks, and going back to school. Her oldest son, John, was 15. His sister, Sheila, was 14. Tina was 12. Rick, 10. And little Greg was just 5 years old. They were like any other family, trying to make ends meet, until the night of April 11th, 1981. That evening, John and his friend Dana Wingate were hitchhiking back to Cabin 28. They had spent the day in Quincy, a nearby town. Back at the cabin, Sue was home with Tina, Rick, and Greg. Sheila, her daughter, had gone to spend the night with a friend in a neighboring cabin. Around 7:30 p.m., neighbors saw John and Dana return to Cabin 28. That would be the last confirmed sighting of them alive. The next morning, on April 12th, Sheila returned home. She walked through the front door and stopped cold. Inside the living room was a bloodbath. Her brother John, his friend Dana, and her mother Sue had all been brutally murdered. The scene was savage. All 3 victims had been bound with medical tape and electrical cords. They were stabbed, beaten, bludgeoned, with what police later determined was a claw hammer and possibly the butt of a Daisy BB rifle. John and Dana's bodies were near the front of the cabin, close together. Sue was found lying on her side near the couch, covered with a yellow blanket. She'd been gagged with her own underwear. Her throat was slashed, but something was off. Rick and Greg were still in their bedroom, completely unharmed. They had slept through the entire attack, and 12-year-old Tina was missing. The investigation was chaotic from the start. Local law enforcement preserved almost nothing from the crime scene. Evidence was mishandled, and key items were never logged. No one heard anything. No screams, no struggle. And with no signs of forced entry, it seemed likely the killers had been invited in, or knew the victims at the very least. Suspects were named, but never arrested. A man named Martin Smart, a neighbor who lived just 2 cabins away, quickly drew suspicion. He had reportedly argued with Sue earlier that week. His wife later told police that Martin had confessed to the killings, but the case still went nowhere. Why? Because somehow, the original investigation missed or ignored crucial evidence. Tina's fate remained unknown until 3 years later. In 1984, a bottle collector stumbled upon a human skull in the woods, nearly 30 miles from Keddie. Dental records confirmed what everyone feared. It was Tina. Her remains were found scattered across the site. The case suddenly went from triple homicide to a quadruple murder. But again, no arrests were made. It wasn't until decades later that the case was reopened. In 2013, new DNA analysis found evidence on a piece of tape recovered from the crime scene. The result? It matched a known living suspect, but the name was never released. Around that time, investigators confirmed that Marty Smart's missing hammer had been found in a nearby pond, just as he described. And a letter he'd written was discovered, one that read, quote, "I've paid the price for your love, and now I've bought it with 4 people's lives," end quote. Still no arrests. And with many of the original investigators either retired or dead, justice feels further away than ever. Today, Cabin 28 no longer stands. It was demolished in 2004. But the story of what happened inside still echoes throughout the town. A mother, 3 children, a friend, all silenced in a savage act of violence. The Keddie Cabin Murders remain officially unsolved, but someone out there knows the truth. And maybe, just maybe, one day, the silence will finally be broken. But what do you think really happened at Cabin 28? Was Martin Smart involved, or was someone else pulling the strings? And why was Tina taken so far from the scene? Drop your theories in the comments. Let's see what you believe. And if you're into deep, disturbing mysteries like this one, be sure to hit subscribe, turn on the notifications, and join the investigation. Because here, the stories never rest, and neither do we. Stay curious, stay vigilant, and stay with DeepCrime. Until next time.